It would only be a matter of time before the Mannings fell under suspicion. But in the meantime, it would require quite an effort on the part of the new London police force to unravel the mystery of what happened at number 3 Minerva Place, Bermondsey, and even more, to track down the perpetrators and bring them to justice. It would become known as the Bermondsey Horror. Marie and Frederick Manning had murdered Patrick O'Connor and buried him under the flagstones of their kitchen. Marie had stolen O'Connor's railway shares and intended to cash in on their devious plan. But Pierce Walsh and others were still looking for O'Connor. The Mannings were running out of time. They were also suspicious of each other and on the verge of an ill-timed marital breakup.
Furniture dealer?
Yes.
But I'm only just back.
Say to him we sell everything.
Everything?
Patrick, he told people he was coming here. They will come. They will find him.
One dress. That was all I kept from my work for Lady Blantyre. I never wore it. When was I able to wear it with Frederick? I was taking what I was promised.
Marie? I spoke with Bainbridge. 15 shillings deposit. The rest when he comes round tomorrow. Marie?
Marie Manning was gone, and Frederick Manning would soon be gone too. They were both now on their own, and the police would have to use all their ingenuity, as well as the latest technology, to track them down and bring them to justice. The Metropolitan Police was only 20 years old at this point. There'd been a real need to create it in dangerous early 19th century London.
Well, before 1829, when the Metropolitan Police first started patrolling the streets of London, the system was organised by local parishes.
People didn't want to be an unpaid policeman, so what was approved was the hiring of substitutes. Now, the easiest substitutes to be hired were the old age pensioners.
Some of them were infirm and decrepit and couldn't really do the job that was required for controlling crime in London of those years.
So this led to a growing dependence upon the rope as a solution to crime. In the reign of Henry VIII, the death penalty is in for about 25 offences. By the time Dickens is a boy, it's in for over 200. You could be hanged for murder, you could be hanged for writing on Westminster Bridge. You could be hanged for stealing, you could be hanged for impersonating a pensioner. Age was no limit. As late as 1830, a boy of 9 was sentenced to be hanged for setting fire to a house.
London had been rocked by the Ratcliffe highway murders, in which 2 families were attacked, leaving 7 people dead.
They arrested John Williams, who actually committed suicide in prison, and then the Home Secretary ordered that his dead body should be displayed on a cart, and there was this great procession that went through Wapping, and then they buried this John Williams with a stake through his heart.
The city suffered terrible crimes, but remained without an adequate law enforcement agency. This problem was addressed by Robert Peel, Home Secretary. In 1829, he brought in the Metropolitan Police Act, which created the world's first modern police force.
Of course, once it had gone through, all hell broke loose, because people did not want a police force. And so when the first policemen went out on the streets at the end of 1829, they were stoned, they were held down in the road while coaches and horses were driven over them, they were beaten up, there were cases of men being blinded.
Even though it was only 2 decades old by the time of the Mannings murder, the force had already dealt with several high-profile murder cases. Thomas Griffiths Wainwright, a case that was to prove a challenge for the new London police force. He was one of the city's earliest known serial murderers.
Thomas Wainwright ended up taking up life assurance policies and then poisoning his wife, his sister-in-law, and so on.
The evidence against him could only be proved against one of the victims, and he, instead of going to the gallows, as was confidently expected, he went to, he was transported to Australia, and he died there some years later.
His life story was to prove intriguing to some of the nation's greatest writers. Oscar Wilde was inspired to write Pen, Pencil and Poison after hearing his story, and we think it's Wainwright who was referenced by Arthur Conan Doyle in his Sherlock Holmes case, The Adventure of the Illustrious Client. Another high-profile case, Lord William Russell, the long-time Member of Parliament, had been murdered in his sleep by having his throat slashed.
Courvoisier had only been employed by him as a valet for about 5 weeks, and during that time he'd already stolen some silver plate which he'd deposited with a friend. But Courvoisier thought he was going to be dismissed, and it's at this point he goes to the kitchen, takes a knife and cuts Russell's throat.
The police were able to deduce that a robbery had been faked.
There was no trace of any external burglary or breaking of any sort. It was actually that thorough search of the crime scene that provided the evidence that led to Courvoisier's arrest.
Courvoisier was hanged outside Newgate Prison in front of a crowd of 40,000 people. Charles Dickens was one of them, as was William Makepeace Thackeray, and they were both appalled by what they saw. Thackeray even wrote an essay entitled On Going to See a Man Hanged. In it he said, "I feel myself ashamed and degraded at the brutal curiosity that took me to that spot." Charles Dickens would soon have another murder case grab his attention as the police were closing in on the mysterious disappearance of Patrick O'Connor in the summer of 1849.